right, so I think we can actually just go ahead and get started now at this point. Matthew, Angeli. All
Good to
right,
be
cool.
back.
We're back. We're back. Um, I don't know if you remember, but my sister, Elizabeth Angeli, she gifted this to me, I think during Christmas time. And so it's a speaking walk. So essentially, when I hold this, there's no way I can say any uhs or any buts or so's or whatever's stuff, etc. So hopefully it won't sound too stilted when I actually talk today and stuff. I don't know, but this should help out a little bit.
Gotcha.
I think
the healing chakras of the rock. So
yeah, but it's only effective when I actually hold it. So if I place it down to grab some bourbon, I mean I don't know if I'm gonna start speaking horribly, you know.
Gotcha.
But we'll try it out and see how it goes. But yeah, hi everybody. Joshua Angela here. I've definitely gone ahead and I've posted this over on all the social media stuff, so everybody should be knowing that we're doing like this podcast now. So this is a podcast for 11th Hour Hero. I've been working on this video game for a little bit of time now. It's a multiplayer roguelike where you and your friends have to board the spaceship, find the boss, and beat the boss all in 1 hour before everything explodes. So the intention is to provide like a cool, nice, fun experience. Primarily, my target audience is a very close set of family and friends. But my philosophy and my strategy is that once it's fun for all of us, then it's going to be fun for all of us. So that's that's where I'm going with this thing. I've been working on it on the grind. I came back from San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, and I've just been like on that grindstone basically. So
yeah,
I'm very happy to be here. It's going to be exciting to talk about 11th Hour Hero. I can talk about this for hours, but we do try to keep this to 30 minutes. So Matthew, you're going to have to keep me a little bit honest.
yeah.
And for everybody else, this is my brother, Matthew Angeli. We live together, and he is one of my main play testers. Just anybody, if I need any help and any feedback and stuff, he's always here to give me that good sense of direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. Let's glad everybody's here, and let's go ahead and kick this podcast started.
Yeah. So the main topic for today is the weapons in this game, in 11th Hour Hero. So why don't you kind of start us off? Like, what are some of the weapons you already have in the game today, and where do you want to like bring them next, and what do you want to include?
Yeah, so with the weapons philosophy, so let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and go move into first person point of view. So that way I can actually draw some of this out. But essentially, I got, let's go into, yeah, so a cool new feature that I have going on with this podcast is that I'm also live streaming from these meta Waybands stuff. So, which means that everything looking over here is great from the from the camera's point of view. But now that you get to see all my huge messy room from behind the screen, so you guys are gonna have to bear with me with that for a little bit. But essentially, when it comes to the weapons that we have in this game, we got six weapons, I think, right now. So we have our starter weapon. We have our revolver. We have three different types of shotguns. So I'm going to say shotgun 1, shotgun 2, and shotgun 3. And then we also have a grenade launcher. So I figured, basically, with these six weapons, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to make sure that we had like a common set of guns that kind of like all act the same way, like within the same archetype of you shoot it once, it does like a lot of damage, and but it's like not the most accurate kind of thing. You still need to have like a little bit of skill in order to like fire these things. Also, with all of these guns are also projectile based. So you shoot, you click the mouse, click once, and it goes ahead and it will like spawn a particle on the client side, and it will shoot that forward, and it will go until it either hits an enemy, hits an object, or if it doesn't interact with anything within 3 seconds, it will explode.
Okay, so for these projectiles, do you have a projectile speed associated with the bullet, or is it like a hit scan wherever you click, it like goes there instantly?
Yeah, good question. So in this game right now, there are no hit scan of weapons. That is
Okay.
something that I definitely do want to add in
Hmm.
at some point. But right now, as I was just trying to like get this game started, it's all been projectile based. So with
Gotcha.
shotgun 1, 2, and 3, I don't actually think they have any. There's no variation on the projectile speed. The only thing is the grenade launcher actually shoots out a thing in an arc
Okay.
rather than in a just straight line kind of thing. So all
Gotcha.
these guns right now are actually like really accurate in that like if you point at something and you hit fire, it's always gonna go to where you aim essentially. Except for the caveat that there is like a few bugs where yeah, there's a bug where sometimes when you move, like if the network thinks that the gun is moving to, it'll just like fire in like a random
Gotcha.
direction. Sometimes the gun and the player collision is like a little bit wonky,
Hmm.
and so it will it's just basically it means that the gun will like rotate like this way drastically on one frame, and if you're just firing at that frame, it'll just like fire in that direction, and
Gotcha.
so it's like super unfortunate. So I think right now these are this like basically for the multiplayer sense, I wanted to make sure that when we actually play, like just like in the demo, that there's like some variety of weapons, even though right
Yeah.
now they don't really follow like a good archetype kind of thing. When I like think of archetypes, the five archetype, like a weapon can consist of like five different traits, right? So one of them would be like power or slash like how much damage you could do. Let's see. One of them would be like accuracy. We got fire speed, or so like slash like cooldown kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Handling, in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, handling. I'll put that down under here because I feel like that's like a case that I'm not really accounting for in my game.
Hmm.
Um, so right now, but that might be something like in the
Yeah.
future kind of thing. It's just one of those things where the once you have like it'd be a good way to like add in more combinatrix. But essentially, let's see what else. There was another one that I had that I was thinking of today, and I might have forgotten. It's one of those things where you always think of if you have like five things, you can only like remember four of them at
Yeah.
a time. Let's see. We got accuracy, cooldown. It's not rate. It's not handling. So we could just work with these three
Yeah.
essentially at this point, right? So you can like almost like imagine it like a triangle. For me, I was definitely think of it more of a
Star or something.
star
Yeah.
or like, but I can't remember the other two right now. I'm sure if I look at the code, we will go like I'll just think I'm like, man, I'm a big dummy. I can't believe I
Yes.
forgot about this. So this is my bad. My bad for like maybe not really. Yeah, I should have been a little bit slightly more prepared for this podcast kind of thing, right? But we can talk about like so for like the revolver, for instance, it's I wouldn't say it's like very high on the power damage scale,
Hmm.
but it would but on the fire speed and cooldown it would be high over here, and then the accuracy would be over here. So we'll just put down like a like like revolver kind of thing. With the starter weapon, this should be like basically uh, awful on the power damage as well. Fire speed, we probably don't want it to be that great, and same thing with the accuracy. So with this one, probably like down like around over here as well. I'd say like the starter, the revolver should actually probably be like a little bit more accurate. So we'll actually just like move this guy up here, right?
Hmm.
Shotguns one, two, and three. Basically, it's we want to make sure that their power and damage are actually super great, but their fire speed is pretty terrible, kind of thing, right? And we can like adjust the accuracy, kind of thing. So we'll just put down 3 dots here for a shotgun. One, two, and three. And then for the grenade launcher, it's basically it's going to be pretty similar to the shotguns, except that it just goes in a goes on an arc kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? So I'd say put this one under very high on the power damage, not so much on the fire speed, and then accuracy. Kind of like that one's a little bit more skillful. I mean, I feel like since it's arc based, like you can
Hmm.
actually you have a lot more leeway on how accurate that grenade launcher
Yeah,
actually
and
is.
it's like probably more damage, more accurate, but way less fire rate than the
Yeah.
shotgun. Like the shotgun, like yeah, you got to maybe pump it or something, but like it's gonna be faster than a grenade launcher.
Hmm. And so when it comes to missing weapons, right? Like there's a bunch of other like weapons that are I feel like it's pretty obvious if you've played like Counter Strike. I know you're pretty big Counter Strike fan.
Hmm.
I think it's okay. I'm just like I'm not very good at first person shooters, so I've never really had the skill to really just be able to headshot people or But I feel like Counter Strike is actually more like if you know the maps well, you can actually do really well, right?
Yeah.
So guns I definitely want to add in are stuff like rifles. So we can
Okay.
have that can like divvy up into like sniper rifles, where it's like high on the accuracy and high on the power damage, but not great on the fire speed or the
Hmm.
cooldown. And then you also have like machine guns maybe are not considered rifles, but there's like burst rifles or
Yeah, you can do submachine guns, yeah,
SMGs.
rifles, yeah.
Uh,
Is one of your the five attributes is one of them range or something like that? Was that ever a part of it? Because like
yeah,
I'm thinking the sniper rifle, that's the whole point is that it's accurate at range, right?
yeah,
While
yeah.
other guns are not.
I feel like that's kind of goes more towards like the accuracy side of
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
It's like the shotguns, they might be great short range, but they're like not great long range because like
Yeah.
the spread
The
of the
spread.
bullets. Although since every single one of these weapons are also projectile based, since this one projectile, it is I don't think accuracy really even counts or really matters quite right now for
Hmm.
the weapons that you find in this game. But that's something that I definitely want to add in.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these things, I built the way I built this game. The guns themselves are pretty. They look pretty simple, and the projectiles, like since it's a multiplayer game, I needed like a good amount of weapons. I do have like I use an asset from the asset store in
Hmm.
order to um, in order to make these projectiles like actually look a little bit cool, a little bit different.
Yeah.
And also the same thing with when you fire a gun, like it has like a little bit of a flare thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of that is also just from the asset store. And so who knows when I'll actually be able to move and do my own custom stuff. But I know that when I move to more custom stuff, that's going to take
Yeah.
a good amount of time to develop. And it's also one of those things where I feel like before I do that, I need to get a set of okay, what are like the final weapons I'm gonna have, like the final set of weapons I'm gonna have in this game.
Hmm.
And once I do that, then I can have a better sense of okay, like what kind of flares, what kind of projectiles do I need, etc. And
Yeah.
then that doesn't even get into like having abilities affect these weapons and guns and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I guess a gun rate, fire rate, that kind of like is the same with fire speed. I think maybe the thing is that maybe the fire speed slash cooldown was a little bit different. Like the fire speed could be like bullet speed versus cooldown would be like how fast it can fire like a gun, right? Like
Hmm.
from firing one bullet to the next bullet.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we've also I think we specifically mentioned we didn't say like all these things are guns, right? Because it's like weapons in general, right?
Yeah.
And that was one thing that you had in your previous game, in Maritime Arena, right? You had a combination of ranged and melee, and
Mhm.
like different like items essentially. Um, So, when you're thinking about this game, it's like, yeah, I mean, maybe you have to like think about it slightly different if it's a melee based weapon, right? But
Mhm.
like all of them all do have to have this kind of like ratio of damage, fire rate, accuracy, right?
Yeah,
So,
I think the problem that I definitely want to add in melee guns, not melee guns, but melee guns too. Like in Halo, why every single gun you could do like a melee thing as well. Why you had the
yeah.
needler where you could just like turn the gun around and just like stab people like
Yeah, or like the
with the back of the
chainsaw
hand.
thing, Gears of
Yeah,
War
and
is like
Gears of
another
War. Yeah,
classic one.
so I do think. Well, so actually, I was thinking. So I want to add in melee weapons like swords and stuff. Like I think swords and axes are a lot of fun to play with. The
Hmm.
thing is, like with the boss itself, it's like flying all the way around the arena.
Yeah,
So it will be pretty hard to actually fight that boss when if you only have like a melee weapon.
sure.
But one other challenge I have in my game is the fact that it's I don't really have a good way of having players like hold multiple weapons at the same time.
Hmm.
So right now in the game, all these guns are all spawned dynamically, like they're all like networked objects. So
Okay.
when you see a gun, it's going to be in the same place, yeah, on all the servers and clients.
Okay.
And that means when you pick it up, it's not like you like despawn the gun and then you have like a fake gun like in your hand or anything like that. It's like
Yeah.
actually that same networked gun. It's now in your hands physically in the game. And that's kind of like where like a lot of this jittery stuff kind of like that you've might have seen in some of these demos actually come from,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I don't really when I do it like this, like sometimes I have to like when you pick up a gun, I have to like disable gravity on the gun. I have to disable some collisions so that way like when you're holding the gun it's not always like trying to constantly trying to fall off your hands essentially.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so but there's a difference between setting making sure that all these settings are applied on the client side and also on the server side. Like
Yeah.
the server needs to tell all the clients that you've like picked up this gun, which means that this gun is now, even though you're not physically picking it up, somebody else is, and that therefore it has to like disable gravity and all this stuff. And so that's kind of like where see you've seen some of the jittery stuff. I don't think I've like applied all those things to all the servers and clients, uh,
Gotcha. Okay.
and or it could be that the client could also just miss like a message being like, oh, like we missed when you told us that this gun got picked up kind of thing, so
Hmm.
therefore like we're gonna just apply gravity on every single frame. So that's like so it gets a little bit wonky, and at this point I'm just trying to get to the happy path first, and
Yeah.
then we can go ahead and fix these bugs later. Because sometimes it's like, at this point, it is just me solo endeavor. So you kind of just have to just embrace the jank a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, embrace the memes, embrace the jank. Just go ahead and just build to my heart's content.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah,
got to get through some
well,
of these things because the weapons can require a lot of fine tuning to feel like really good, right?
yeah,
And I think that's definitely an important step, but it's also not the step that you gotta like. It's not the step that you can afford to get stuck on for hours and hours,
hmm,
especially when the game is still developing. You're still trying to figure out a lot of the interaction still, and also just like the gameplay testing. Like you got to figure out all the stats first, right?
yeah,
Like no matter how good it feels to shoot the gun, I mean, if it doesn't do any damage, it's not going to feel good, right? Kind
right,
of
right,
thing.
right.
So it's like you need to kind of get a lot of other things out of the way. And it's already come so far from where it started when it was
Yeah,
basically like two rectangles, essentially.
yeah, that, yeah,
But that
but
was just, to kind of like, you needed an MVP of sorts, right?
yeah,
And now you have like a little bit of like the gun flare, you have projectile speeds, you actually have different models for each guns, right?
yeah.
But it's not like you got it all like, tied down, right?
Yeah, and so I was thinking, just to recap from what, like, the original point was, okay, melee weapons, are they going to be in the game? I think the solution to that is, I want them to be in the game, so I'll make it. But I think in order to do that, I'll set up a couple constraints. One of them is that in the game you can only hold one weapon at a time.
Hmm.
So that like so a lot of these because like the other bug that I'm like, okay, there's already bugs where like, when you hold a weapon, like that's gonna like some of it like some of these abilities things might not like apply very well, right?
Hmm.
And then if I was to have two like people be able to hold two weapons at a time, or like just have one on their back and then one of their hands and stuff, and then
Yeah.
have to create like a system where like they can swap between them, and then have a whole nother system where like okay, like this weapon is not being held, but it is being occupied by this other person, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, just figuring out that whole logic also across the network and across the clients, I feel like it's just too much work at this point for what I'm trying to do, which is just try to provide a cool adventure for people.
Yeah.
So I think the first constraint is you can only hold one weapon at a time.
Okay.
So that I think what will happen is when I bring in melee weapons, they will have like two ways to fire weapons. One of them will be like firing from long range, and then the other one would be from firing at close range.
Okay.
So it could be like maybe on a rifle, you have like you fire one bullet and that's like really accurate, and the second alternate fire would be like three bullets, but it's like short range kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
Maybe with the pistol or the revolver, long like one primary fire is to fire, and then the secondary fire is just to like pistol whip or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I think with the melee weapons, especially when it comes to the boss, in a maritime arena, I had this sword, the laser sword, where you could actually, once you charged it up, you could then fire like a laser attack and do that from afar.
Okay.
And so I think that's what I'll end up doing with melee weapons, where primary attack will be like slicing and dicing. And that because like in VR that's like super cool. Like you don't like
Yeah.
that's just kind of like very like intuitive. I do really like that. I do want that. And then, but yeah, when it comes to the boss, I don't think it's not very effective to fight the boss like one on one. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna lose if you try to one at the boss, because the boss just does too much melee damage. So I think
Yeah.
you will need to have melee weapons be able to attack long range somehow with
Yeah.
like a maybe super long sword swipe or like a laser sword
I
like
like your
fire.
idea of the primary and secondary fire. I think that's good, and that brings variety to each gun,
Mhm.
right? Makes it more than just like kind of like a one trick pony,
Yeah.
honestly. And as long as you just don't make one like really more overpowered than the other, then I think
Yeah.
it's fine. So
Or I mean, I could make it overpowered.
you could,
I
yeah,
think that's part of the experience of this game is to try to figure out okay what kind of abilities to pick up to make yourself like pretty overpowered.
hmm
I think the other thing is that we could have it where guns. We already talked about like having like these different like dilemmas, these different situations where you kind of have to choose, pick and choose if if you want to be if you get like this situation like hey like a cat is stuck in a tree, right? Like do you save it or do you not, kind of thing, right?
yeah,
And like I'm just using this as a really like small example, but maybe it's one of those things where you've been playing this game a while, you've had this gun that you really like, you have these abilities, and you could come across this cat in the tree, and it's like oh you actually don't have like the right weapon with you to really help you out
yeah,
at that point. So that might be a good way of actually creating some sort of like conflict when it comes to these different situations. Like you want to help out, but you can't, or maybe here like it's a little risky. Like maybe it involves actually like sacrificing your weapon that you've been building up this whole entire time, right?
yeah,
I think I think adding this constraint, I think it will add in a little bit more creativity and some more play within the overall experience. And so that's just another reason why I want to add in that one constraint.
yeah.
Also, to save me a ton of work too. Like I don't have a lot of time. I mean, especially with these Trump tariffs going on right now. Like yeah, my bank account, I just feel like this is dwindling.
Yeah, don't check your 401k.
Yeah, I know, right? It's not good.
Yeah.
All right,
So,
what else do you got for me?
yeah, okay, so we've talked a little bit. So we've talked about a lot of the game. Sorry, weapons in the game and like kind of what you're planning for a little bit. So, what are some of your favorite weapons from other games you've played that have given you inspiration for some weapons in this game?
Yeah. So I really like Borderlands.
Hmm.
Borderlands has been like a huge inspiration. So originally, one of the ideas I have for this game was you could actually build up your own weapon. So
Yeah,
not even like a like you maybe you start off with like just like a firing mechanism, right? And then you can find like this like long barrel that you can attach. Then you can find like a scope that you can attach as well, right?
yeah, yeah,
But then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, this isn't very simple. Like it's
yeah,
not only like finding all these parts and making sure all these configurations work, but then also having that network, making sure that I can actually like uh, you figure out how to serialize, like get all this data down to like these IDs to then display to share with everybody on the server and client, and then having everybody reconstruct those the gun based off of that ID. I think would be tough, and then being able to like share different weapons, I think would be also difficult as well. It's more like I think it's just for best bang for buck when it comes to like adding in these weapons where you can have like these different archetypes.
yeah,
It's just better to have it as like whole weapons that you can switch, that you can share around and stuff.
yeah,
But I do really like in Borderlands how all those guns are procedurally generated. Like
yeah,
they are like they have their own, like each gun is built from its own company, right? And the company itself has like just like some of the firing rates, like the Jacobs weapons, all fire as fast as you can click the mouse. Molly One weapons, they're all elemental. They've got fire damage or electrical damage or ice damage, right?
hmm,
Hyperion weapons, they they get more accurate the more you shoot them, kind of thing. So great for
yeah,
machine guns and stuff. I really like how, yeah, like being able to like find a weapon that is a little bit better than the one I already have, and just being able to play around with like different firing systems, like just the fact that you just like churn through so many things and each one's like adjust your play style. I
yeah.
feel like is that's something that I definitely want to capture.
Okay,
And I definitely, when it comes to my favorite weapon was this SMG I found in Borderlands 2, where you fire it and then it's I forget oh, it's a Theodore weapon. It's a one
okay,
where like when you reload it by tossing the weapon, it
yeah,
explodes and you just reform it again, right? But this one, it was better. Like this one would, when you reload, it doesn't just fly out of your hand. It like actually flies out of your hand. Like I'll go around, it'll start like homing in on different enemies,
oh, that's cool.
and it'll like shoot at them while it's flying, and then when it lands on an enemy, it will like explode. So for this weapon, it was actually better to just fire it one time, like just one bullet. So it'd be like 36 to 35, and then reload. And so then that way it's firing, and then you can either switch to another weapon or you just reform that same weapon
Yeah,
again.
that's
So
really
you,
cool.
yeah, so that was, um, I think this actually might have been, yeah, this was Borderlands 2 because
Okay.
my character in Borderlands 1 was the Mordecai guy,
Hmm.
where he had that eagle that could fly around and attack enemies. And so
Yeah,
in this game in Borderlands 2, that flying machine gun kind of like reminded me of that bird essentially.
yeah.
It was definitely significantly worse, but it's still it was still awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Borderlands is it's definitely like the game if you're trying to think about just like yeah, procedurally generating guns and just having like so many guns, it's like crazy. I mean, I forget but that was one of their selling points. I mean, just having like basically an infinite amount of guns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can keep on replaying boss fights to get like the same gun but like a little bit different, right? Because they're not always all the same. So yeah, I think that's good inspiration to take from though. Like definitely going to be hard to implement as much depth as they had for
Oh
all their
yeah,
guns
yeah.
because I
So
mean
I'm
they
yeah.
had so many things. But you know, to another extent though, like sometimes I think they had so many things going on that it was kind of hard to
Yeah,
not get like overwhelmed by it all because it's
yeah.
like yeah I mean it's like just the fact that you have all these different gun producers and you're like oh okay Jacobs what do they do and at a certain point it's like intuitive because you can just pick up the gun and shoot it and see how it feels right
Yeah.
and that's what I think is like good about that game. Like you could just do whatever works best. Like you don't have to really like look at the numbers all that hard if you
Hmm.
didn't want to. And so, with your stuff, like, yeah, you're not going to be able to go as deep, right? But if you build the whole guns out, right, it's like, okay, do I want a shotgun or a revolver for this situation? It's
Yeah.
like, yes, it's a lot more simpler, but I mean, if the guns are varied enough, I think that'll be plenty fun enough, especially like in a roguelike where you're gonna be replaying it, you're gonna be like getting the sense of all these different guns.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think you knocked it on the head too. Where in my game, like just to add on, it's a 1 hour experience,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't really have a lot of time to really like take a look at these guns and really like min max. At least I don't want people to be trying to min max by just like the guns that they're holding.
Yeah.
That's where like the ability system I think comes in, where you will um sorry, my glasses are like speaking to me. I don't know if that was like super noticeable and stuff, but my glasses are the battery is just like going downwards and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but that's fine. I mean, like anyway, I mean, it's already done its purpose of doing like the first person point of view. Anyway, but going back to this point, um, yeah, it's only a 1 hour experience. So you're not. I don't want people to be spending their time looking at guns and like looking at the up arrows or down arrows and being like do I move on to this gun or do I stick with my gun?
Mm-hmm.
I do think Borderlands, it was very overwhelming to see like all these different guns, especially and then also like the looting thing, which I love looting, but there's just been so many times where I feel like I've played with you and Stevie, and you guys were like, Joshua, like let's get a move on, like we're gonna move on to like the next room,
Yeah.
and I yeah, and so with the 1 hour time constraint, that also should limit like how much you should actually be looking at these guns. So right now in this game, there's like no information when you look at a gun at this point. The only way you can get a feel for these guns is if you just pick it up and you
Yeah.
just shoot it around and stuff a little bit. You don't even get a sense of damage at this point. So I do feel like I do need to have like some sort of heads up when you're looking at a gun, just so that way you can figure out, okay, like what gun does this like archetype does this thing belong to, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's but it's only the archetype that I feel like you really should be caring
Yeah.
about, not like, oh, this does like 31 times 3 when I shoot it, right? Like I think that's not very important, and I feel like the more information that you get, the harder it is to really understand what's actually going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe just show that spider chart of like, but make it,
Yeah,
only like only
make it look as good as this spider chart.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Well.
but I do think a spider chart. I'll write that down. A spider
Yeah. I
chart.
mean, but then also, but don't have numbers tied to it, and just be like, revolver is this spider chart, a shotgun is this spider chart, right? And like, don't give too much information so people feel like they need to like actually look at the graph to see the difference. Like, no, it should be plainly obvious. Like, obviously, like the submachine gun's gonna have the higher fire rate, but it's not gonna have like a lot of damage, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, anyways, we're getting kind of near the end. Is there anything else you want to tell the fans, people following?
Yeah, I'll say so I've been working towards getting like a demo up on itch. This is only for the people that are like who want to play test and all that stuff, right? I'm still working towards that. Weekly challenges is a little bit more difficult than I not like it's not like that difficult, but I've been working like on all these menus and stuff, making sure that those all look good. Because I
Yeah.
do think like the player experience starts like immediately when you like boot up and load up and all that stuff, right? So making sure that that looks like decent has taken like a little bit of time, but I am working towards like getting a demo up like sooner rather than later.
Nice.
And so I think for the most part, basically you should be following me on Twitch. I stream a couple of times a week at least, sometimes 3 times. One of those times includes now at this podcast.
Nice.
And follow me in Blue Sky and on Twitter/X as well. Those will give me get up to date stuff. And let's see what else. Discord. The Discord always have a link on Twitch. I have it up on these YouTube podcasts as well. So just yeah, if you want to be part of the future of this game, being able to give feedback and really shape like how this adventure forms, you definitely want to be on that Discord. I also ask like people on what questions they have on podcasts. In fact, we should probably actually take a look and see if anybody's actually you know put up any questions and stuff to answer onto the podcast itself. So let's see. Looking at responses here, nothing quite yet. So that's okay. So next time, anybody that has any questions and stuff publicly, like let me know, and I'm like more than willing to answer them here on this podcast, as long as it's appropriate. If it's like nothing that will get me canceled for sure. Yeah, that'd be
all right. That sounds good.
not good. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for talking about the weapons. We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. It was a great time having you all here, and we'll see you at the next one. All right, cool. Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff.
I don't know. You need to go to...
Let's see. I need to end it here on this Twitch.